And so to watch these students over the course of 4 years going along this journey with us, it's amazing. And then whether they're in politics, whether they're a doctor, whether they're teaching, or whether they're in ministry, wherever God is calling them to be, for them to feel equipped, I consider it the privilege of my life to be a part of this.
Working with the local church to take the hope of Christ to every student in the United States. This is First Priority. Now here are your hosts, Steve Cherico and Brad Skelling.
Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. My name is Steve, and this is my frenemy, Brad Schelling. We're glad you're here.
We are very glad you're here on the 43rd attempt at recording this intro. We're awesome.
Oh, Brad, we've got a great conversation today with a mutual friend of yours and mine, Miss Nikki from Student Leadership University.
Yes.
And I don't want to give much of it away, but do you have any thoughts as we get ready to jump in?
My thought is just that we're going to jump right in because we had such a great conversation with her, and we'll tell a story again next week, make some more announcements again next week. But yeah, it's an awesome partnership. Love Student Leadership University and everybody that's over there. Obviously, Nikki, Jeff, Brent, Jay, the people who have been there for, like Nikki said, 25 years, just built such a long-standing relationship with them, and it just fits. And we can talk about some of that after the conversation.
Cool, let's go. Well, as Brad mentioned, we have the good fortune having my friend Nikki on the podcast today. Nikki, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Brad. Cool.
I said my friend as if you're not Brad's friend, but I think you're Brad's friend too.
He claims me some days.
That's right. It's one of them. Just like
I just bother Nikki more than Brad does. That's for sure.
That's right.
No, we're grateful for our friends at First Priority. So,
thank you. Well, Nikki, for our First Priority listeners who have seen you walking and hustling through different events that we've been at, tell everybody who you are, where you are, and what the Lord's doing.
Okay, awesome. Well, like you said in the intro, my name is Nikki Hoffpauir, and I currently serve with the team at Student Leadership. I have been around. This is actually, I'm going into my 25th year with them. And so,
wow.
Yep. I can't believe it. So we were prepping for the summer, and we don't count that often, but I looked and I'm like, wow, we're hitting 25. So 25 years. I currently serve as their COO, but we joke around the house, we're all just chief interns. And so, but I handle all the operations side of the ministry. And so anything that comes to putting the events together, love serving with our team, with our lead team, with Brent and Dr. J and Jeff. And so we're just really excited about what we're doing and all that the Lord has ahead of us. I just got back from getting ready for our SLU 301 in Europe this summer. And so we went last year after a couple years off. And so there's nothing like getting to take a student and letting them see that the world is bigger than their own community, but also once they come back to that community to see just what an impact they can have on it. So love being a part of this ministry and the journey that students go on. So I actually started with SLU as a student in the first year they ever had it. And I guess I just got hooked. It's definitely not what I thought I would be doing with my life. But it's just such a fun adventure. And I, like I said, there's nothing like when the light comes on for a student and then they think, man, what I'm doing, if I can do it for the glory of the Lord and in whatever area of life that God calls me, to just see them on fire. And we know this, the three of us, but the Bible is just littered with stories of young people that make a difference. And so to really see them on fire, focused for what the Lord has for them, there's just nothing better than being a part of that story and that journey. So.
Super good. Family, tell us family a little bit, would you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I am one of the few team members that works remote so not in the Orlando office. My husband is amazing, Brady Hoffpauir. He is an engineer and with Siemens. And so we relocated here about 10 years ago and just have been married for 15. And so love Charlotte, North Carolina, because we were talking before we got started, but we are big hikers and backpackers. So love being in a place where we can do that. Have two amazing kids. So Mackenzie is 12. She is hit the middle school years. And in fact, which is scary in and of itself, having worked with teenagers for a long time, there's nothing like going through the middle school years, and that on the front lines there. My husband and I have taught seniors at our church. So we're, that senior in high school phase. So middle school is its own fun journey. And so loving that. This was a pretty cool landmark moment for me with SLU. Is I was at a lift tour in Columbia a couple weeks ago, and Mackenzie came with me. So it was her first SLU experience. She came in because she was old enough to attend. So she came and helped out a little bit. And after many years it's funny when we prep for an event, it's a family endeavor. Anyone in ministry kind of knows that. And so there's pictures throughout the years of them putting, assembling the folders for the teams and putting all the packets together. So this was her first time she got to be on site. And then we have Tucker, who is 10 in 4th grade, and he loves soccer, and he is for anyone who's gone on the SLU journey and knows the DISC personality profile, he is a full C on the DISC. So everything in his world is very black and white. And so it's really fun to have conversations with Tucker because there's no filter. And my husband and I joke, it must be what it's like for when he was a child. And so, because if you want to know what Tucker's thinking, you just have to ask, and he will shoot straight. And I'm like, oh, buddy, that's good. Maybe,
I love it.
Add that. Don't jump right into that. So, but, and then we have a brand new puppy dog. So
nice.
Scout. Oh. And he's a chocolate lab rescue. And we forgot what the puppy years were like. We got him in at the end of Thanksgiving. So really enjoying that journey as well. We definitely forgot. I think life lets you forget what it's like to have a puppy in the house. And so that keeps our world pretty busy. So.
We're still talking about that in our house. I've got a 10-year-old as well who is all about dogs. And we've been dragging our feet for at least 10 years about getting one. So who knows? I
think if we were to do it again, because there's something different about training a puppy when it's just the two of you, and then training a puppy when you also have kids. The consistency of that. And it was a little easier with our first rescue because it was just Brady and I. And so I think maybe we would have gotten a 2 or 3-year-old, those that are out of the teething phase. But anyway, but it's fun. They're having a lot of fun with it. So
good.
Anything creative been chewed up in your home in this puppy face?
Oh my goodness. So much. The difference between our last rescue, we think he was a lab boxer mix, but Scout, he finds things that we have not found in a long time. So he's actually search and rescue. Like he can find any sock in the house that has gone missing. And he's starting the chewing phase where it's like you'll walk into a room and he's gone through stuff. So nothing that interesting. It's more that he is a little acrobatic. So we don't have him on the couch, but in the morning, my husband was joking because we have a little rhythm, like he'll come into our room and when I'm doing my quiet time. And he can come up on this one stool. So I came in after having traveled and I look and he is not on the stool. He's on the dresser. So like he's made it all the way up. And so I think we're just still discovering all the things that that. And then he has found the AC piping in the backyard and so to the AC unit and finds that tasty as well. So we're just
sorry.
It's fun. But maybe I should have said that if you're thinking about, I don't want to disappoint your 10-year-old if that was one shot to get
this is perfect for me. That's great.
I'm sorry. Tell your 10-year-old I failed them completely.
That is so great. So great. Well, Nikki, you are a longtime friend of First Priority of America. You're a longtime friend of our family as well. And so I want to talk a little bit about just Youth Pastor Summit and
Yeah.
Lift, which from my perspective are two front doors that really help people get a glimpse of what your main thing is, which is raising students up through SLU 101 through 401. Would love to hear a little bit from your perspective of what's going on with YPS in 2023 heading in 2024. Same with Lift. You're right in the thick of Lift season. Like, catch us up a little bit on what's going on that side of the ministry.
Yeah, for sure. So it's been a fun Lift Tour season this year. So the theme is Awaken, and our good friend Ryan McDermott has a new resource out called Unbound, and it's kind of based off of that, and it really digs into the idea, which I think we can all relate to. And I've heard so many stories about Lazarus, but hadn't really got this until he pointed it out, is that when you read the story, when he comes out of the grave, he still has his grave clothes on. And so many of us live our Christian life where even though we're redeemed and we have that freedom in Christ, we're still living with the clothes of that old life. And so Lift Tour is 4 sessions. And so we are walking through that Awaken theme. The team is heading to California and to McDonough so we've got a couple more weeks to wrap up. We're in 18 cities this spring. And so it's just been so much fun. Lift Tour, like you said, Steve, is one of our 2 front porch ministries. And it just something we've been doing, for over 20 years. It's a commitment we have in the spring to come alongside student ministries. And so it's 4 sessions. We do worship. We give students an opportunity on that first night to respond to the gospel. And like I said, it's something that you can bring your whole student ministries to, and to watch these students responding to that call that God has on them. It's a death to life decision. And so it's been so fun this spring to just see that and the excitement in the room. And we love that anytime. Of course, anyone does. I think there's something so refreshing in the last couple of years. I think for all of us that work with students, it's been a tough season coming out of COVID, and just so there's nothing like being in a room with them. In every place that we go, we're all over the country, and everyone was different about the requirements or the regulations or when they could meet again. And I think for us, what we saw specifically with the Lift Tour in the last year is just, people trying to get back to a new rhythm, not a new normal, but a new rhythm on the other side of COVID. And so to be together with other groups and to just see that freedom to worship and to be excited about what God is doing in their lives, it's so fun. So we love the Lift Tour. We'll do that, like I said, a couple more weeks, and then we'll wrap that up. We'll do a couple in the fall. So that's new. We have a partnership with our friends in California. And so we'll do Northern California. Excited about that this weekend. And then we'll come back and do Southern California in the fall there. So that's what's going on with the Lift Tour. And then our Youth Pastor Summit. Well, I know you guys know this, but we've done that. That program started in Orlando, Florida. And it really just was a vision of Dr. Jay Strack, our president and founder, that he wanted to. So for us, with our core ministry, like what you said, Steve, is 101 through 401. And so our heart for Youth Pastor Summit is if you say that you want to walk alongside students, but we only get them for 4 to 5 days out of the year, what's the one thing that you can do to encourage and equip throughout the year? And that is to encourage and equip those that are in the trenches with them daily. So that's where Youth Pastor Summit came from. It's a 2-day program. And we do that, like I said, it started in Orlando, Florida, because Dr. J, he'll say this a lot. He says, it's typically our student pastors are the most underfunded, under-resourced position in the church. And yet you give them your most valuable asset in the church, students, at their most important and vulnerable time. Studies will show, our friends at Lifeway told us this, but I'm sure it was a Barna study at some point. But most students will come to know the Lord between the ages of 11 and 13, which has given me a renewed passion for middle school, but not enough that I want to stay in that season. I'm just going to say that. So, but they're going to make that decision in the office between 11 and 13.
Yeah.
And so to be able to for 2 days, encourage, the three things that Lifeway really focuses on is that community and that soul care and the education with that. And so to be able to say to them, hey, what you're doing matters, keep going. And that's what I think a lot of them needed to hear. I mean, you've seen that great, whatever they're calling it now, the resignation, but for people in student ministry and in children's ministry. So to be able to put on an event for 2 days that gives them something that normally would cost them $350 at a regular conference, bring in world-class speakers, do breakout labs in worship, and so that they just feel like, hey, I've got some resources and some tools, some practical things, but also I've got a community of people that are doing this as well in my region, in my area. And so we love Youth Pastor Summit. Our friends at Lifeway came alongside us with Ben Trueblood several years ago, and he says, what could we do to be a friend to student pastors? What could we do to partner with you? And Brent at the time said, well, we'd love to expand. Our vision for Youth Pastor Summit is that we have one, not just in Orlando, but one in every region, so that it was possible for within a 3-hour drive. So right now we're in Southern California, we're in Nashville, we're in Orlando, we are in Dallas, and this year we're expanding to Chicago. So that's really exciting and we will start that at the end of March. So those 5 in those cities, and we're pretty pumped about it.
We're excited about it as well, because First Priority will be there at all of the events. We got Justin going out to California, Chris down in South Florida. I mean, he's been doing it probably as long as YPS has been around, taking a group of pastors up from Miami, and Amber's joining us from Tampa. And we're just super excited at every one of those events. We've got our Fort Worth crew going to be in Dallas with you. Obviously, you have to put up with Steve and I in Nashville.
I love that.
That'll be a long couple days. Get your shrink ready for that one.
Yeah.
And then
I will say this before you get to the next question. It's one of the things that we love about partnering with you all. One, great friends, but when you're in it, you're in it with us. So I think when we started in Nashville, honestly, Steve, we wouldn't have been able to do it without y'all. You were there, boots on the ground, to help us to put all the bags together, and you're always like, what can we do? I mean, it's not only do you all have such a passion for what you're doing in your communities, but you're just great team players. And, one of the things that we try to teach our students is there's not a level or a point in leadership where you become too good for something. That's just not the model that we have of our Savior. He was a servant leader. And that just is always modeled with you all. So, I mean, I think there's more times than I can count that I look over and then one of y'all have popped in and helped with registration or with, that was probably one of my favorite things one year, Steve, is you just came and you're like, okay, what, can I help check people in? And so we love partnering with you all because you're just good friends and good partners, and you help us get the job done. So we couldn't do it without you.
Well, I am going to ask you for a story because you guys are good at story. So think for me for a minute. Let's rewind to Lift Tour for a second, okay? Because you talk a lot about students and Lift Tour and giving the students a view. But one of the things that I've run into, and hopefully I'm setting you well up for the story, one of the things I've run into when I've been to the lifts is I see this look on the youth pastor or youth leader's face of not only contentment, but like, this is where I'm supposed to be for the next 2 days. It's very interesting that is really done for students. And yet these youth leaders that are, as again, you said so well, they're overworked often. Some of them are pure volunteer, not all of them, but some, right? And they are at levels exhausted. And then you bring in, again, stealing your terminology, world-class talent that are human beings. They're not stage people, right? The people you bring in are truly human. Have you run into any lift moments with adult leaders who walked up to you and basically all but tears said, I was exhausted and this is unreal. And I know it was meant for the students, but here I am, right? I'm just being authentic in my gratefulness.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it happens probably to each of us at every different lift tour or youth pastor summit. It's something. So like I said, I was in Jacksonville and Columbia on this one. I'm not on the road with as many of the lift tours. And I think so maybe two stories. So one, when we were in Jacksonville, we'll have a time in each of the lift tours where we get all of the leaders together. One, because we really do believe in community. And so for them to be able to sit around the table and to talk to other leaders, because they're in that room. So to gather them on Saturday morning after they've already had some of those small group sessions. And so it was a smaller group. So I had them, I'm like, all right, let's go around and, say where you're from, but also everyone has stories in student ministry. So they were going around and telling stories, some of which I'm like, oh, well, we're starting the morning off. I mean, those really good, youth camp stories that came out of that. But, the first person who went, I mean, it was hard. No one was going to top that. So, and I'm like, oh, well, we're starting the morning off hot there. And so they went into that. And what was fun is, we had someone in the room who'd been doing it for 20 years and someone who had been at a church for less than a month. And he was overwhelmed, didn't have the support staff there. And he came up afterwards and he goes, this was the best part of the event. He goes, because I know that I'm not alone. And now I've connected with people in my area that can walk alongside me. And we just love that, because I think sometimes in ministry, it's a lie that Satan tries to convince us all that, that you are alone or that you're isolated. So to see them just from, over donuts and coffee and really funny story and laughter, for him to immediately make a connection. And so they walked out of that with community. And then another one from Columbia, it was so cool. And this one was tears. So she came up afterwards. We do they can enter to win a drawing. And so the one young lady who won that of Columbia, her youth leader came up afterwards. And she said, she goes, it's crazy that she won. We've had such a hard season of ministry with her, and we didn't even know if she was coming to this. Had been battling some health things. The young lady's house had burned down, and the church is they were in the trenches with them, but weary from it. I think we all just get
sure.
And in tears, she's like, I just have never seen a light come on. And I think that's the thing. One, it's for any of us who care about students, it's when you see that they're getting it, it renews in you that energy to keep going. But the truth is, I was, because that was the one that Mackenzie came to. It was fun for me as a mom to just say, I said, this is what I get to do. And to watch, we've got pictures of her, and we had another friend who's been with SLU for a long time. They brought their daughter too, because they're 3 weeks apart. And so to watch them worshiping and to kind of get a little bit, I personally was like, yes, this is fun. I love it anytime, but I wouldn't, for as long as I've been doing it, but to watch your kids start to get it. And I think that's the same thing. Any of us who are working with students, we feel like they're our kids. And so when they get excited about Jesus, it's like, oh yeah, the hard days, they're going to still be there, but to see them make that connection is awesome. So
cool. So Nikki, for the first priority director or volunteer that's out there, they've heard us talking about you before, but they've not engaged you yet. What would you say? What would you encourage them to do first? What would be the first way that we could engage? They could engage Student Leadership University and get involved themselves and or their students. What would be the thing that you'd recommend for them?
Sure. Well, Lift Tour is easy for that, to do that if they're wanting to do their students. And that's the fun thing about our Front Porch Ministries. Youth Pastor Summits for them, and then Lift Tour is for their students.
Yeah.
And so it's meant to be affordable for Lift Tour, and then obviously YPS is just a small registration fee of $15.
Yeah.
So I would say, depending on when this one is going, it's not too late for Youth Pastor Summit. And I know that y'all are getting the word out about that, but I would say get your spot there, because the resources are phenomenal. The connections that you're going to make are so important. So that I would say is a great first step. And then we'll be there. Y'all will be there.
We'll be there.
I'd love to talk to you more about student leadership. I mean, at the end of the day, we do all this because of our heart and our passion and our calling to equip students in their journey, in their leadership journeys.
That's true. Yeah, $15 in a hotel room, and you get 2 days worth of high quality information, camaraderie. Yeah, we'll be able to connect with them while they're there, and they'll know all about. What's that?
And Chick-fil-A.
And Chick-fil-A, yes.
I mean, there's
and manna.
They're winning all around. So.
They are. Yes. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, you bring up a good point, which is at that $15 cost, Brad. The one thing that I have seen over the years of YPS is leaders look at their top leaders who are not on staff and say, give me a day of your time. I'll pay your $15 registration fee. I'll find a way to get you in a hotel room. And so youth pastors who really are one-man shows are showing up with the reality. They're showing up with 3, 4, or 5. And Nikki, your team has been equipping youth ministers in ways that other conferences just haven't figured out how to do, because other conferences, they're great, they're fabulous, there's no stones there, but they just doesn't fit the bandwidth of a typical youth pastor budget. And so when you got a guy like Bob Goff, it's not just talking to the youth pastor who's then going to try to communicate that to the 6 people down below him that run small groups, right? You got Bob talking to the youth pastor, plus the 6 youth ministers that are lay leaders under them. It's such a beautiful moment. It's been one of my most enjoyable experiences when I've gotten to speak at a breakout at Youth Pastor Summit, is having come up and say, hey, let me start with, I'm not on staff at my church, and yet I'm fully vested in my church. I'm like, oh, then you're exactly who I wanted to invest into today, right? How great is that? Tell me your story, and what can I encourage you in? Because I had 10 of you, I had 12 of you that should have been paid, but there was no way to pay everybody who was doing great work. So that's another thing that I do love about the YPS scenario.
Well, and I will say this, I love that you feel like you have a place, whether you're full-time or a parachurch or volunteer, because I think a lot of times, if you are a volunteer, I mean, you're doing double duty, you have a job somewhere else and doing that. And so to know that you can get practical tips, or like you said, as a student pastor, to be able to take some of your key volunteers. So one of the things that I'm also excited that Lifeway's doing this year is for our Dallas, our California, and our Nashville ones, if you are in ministry, if you've been in ministry 2 years or less, they're doing a pre-conference new to ministry and just giving you some extra resources and tools. So if you can get into town early and you're new to ministry, they've got some incredible resources. And like I said, at the end of the day, whether it's from main stage or breakouts or some of the pre-conferences or just the people that you're going to connect with, you are going to leave encouraged, but you are going to leave with some real practical things that you can immediately implement in your ministry.
Yep.
So good.
Cool.
Well, Nikki, to be respectful of time, we need to start to land this plane, but I'm going to say to Brad out loud, we're going to need to have you back on to go through some nuts and bolts of 101 through 401. We've made an assumption that everybody is familiar with Student Leadership University, just like we make that assumption that everybody's heard of First Priority before. That's a mistake on our part. So for those of you who are, have been on the podcast, listening to it, faithful of First Priority, Student Leadership University is a 20-year jump for a student on preparing for the life they're about to live, starting as a young high school student and working their way through 4 different segments. I can't give those to you right now, and I'm not going to ask Nikki to because they're long, but if you really want to understand what that 20-year jump looks like on leadership as an adult, Student Leadership SLU Lead will get you there on the web. Nikki, do you have any words you want to give them just about that before we jump into my last question for you?
Sure. I'll just say this. Our team is excited to walk alongside you and your students in that. And what's fun about that is I think sometimes there's this misconception that this is about those that are called to ministry. But the truth is we're all called to be salt and light in the world. And so there is nothing better we say around this camp that you'll be the same person today, 5 years from now, except for the places you go, the people you meet, the books you read, and the scripture you memorize. And so to watch these students over the course of 4 years going along this journey with us, it's amazing. And then whether they're in politics, whether they're a doctor, whether they're teaching, wherever, or whether they're in ministry, wherever God is calling them to be, for them to feel equipped. I consider it the privilege of my life to be a part of this. And so we'd love to do it with those of you that are listening. So give us a call. We'll tell you all about it.
Awesome. Well, again, as we land the plane, let me ask you this question. We're all beginning to look out again, which has been really nice. We all looked in for a period of time, didn't we? So we're all beginning to look out again. You've been in this for a while, on a team. What do you see? What do you see for Student Leadership University over the next 5 to 10 years as you're on that leadership journey with this team?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that. We're excited. I mean, I think there are exciting days ahead, and it comes in small moments. The fact that I could plan for something that was more than 3 months out with for a while, it was like, okay, we can plan 3 months out, and we have to have 3 different scenarios depending upon where it was. So going into this year and like planning a year out, which I am normally a 5 to 10 year kind of person. And so that was nice. It was real exciting. But for us at Student Leadership, some of the things that we are really excited about is one of the positives, or the good lessons learned out of COVID, is ways to creatively resource people, regardless of whether or not we can do events. And so we do events, one, because we like to be with people. We believe that that's what God has called and equipped us to do. But, if our hands are ever tied again, what are those things that we can do? So we have, we've brought on an amazing teammate with Brian Martinez as our creative director to expand. He's been with us for the last year, but to expand our resourcing division. And so through a couple things, our School of Leadership that we launched this past spring, those are some amazing resources. And then our Wonder Box that we pre-launched last year. I have to say this, and I'm not saying this just to kind of pump Brent up, but he's committed to writing 100,000 words a year through the Wonder Box. And so it's on four different seasons. So spiritual formation, history, leadership, and current events. And so it's a book that he is writing in real time, just for Wonderbox attendees and or those that have signed up. So you got to sign up to be a part of that. So that's been a lot of fun, being able to dream and think through what are those things that we can be doing as far as reaching and equipping people, whether or not we're meeting in person. So that's pretty exciting. I think the thing that we're all praying about and just knowing that, as we're coming through this, we've seen a lot of fatigue in ministry. And so, I mean, we talk about that all the time. Just there's so many open positions, and it probably every generation, Brad and Steve says this. So it feels weird like that we've gotten to that stage in our ministry season where we're saying that, like, oh, it's not like it was. And it isn't. And I think some of our best friends that we've been doing this with, but that's true of every season. For students, you have to constantly figure out the best way to reach them, to speak their language. But the nice thing is those biblical principles that we're all those are timeless. Yeah. And so just continuing to think through that format. So we're having a lot of fun with different ways of doing the SLU 101 journey. And again, continuing to expand Youth Pastor Summit in a way that people can reach. So I think there's screen fatigue for a lot of people. And so bringing on some new partners to continue to expand those live events, as well as doing resourcing. So that for us is some of the fun things that we're doing around the shop, just looking ahead and thinking, okay, we're going to do this in 3 years. We'll do this. We'll be here in 5. And so, and then the last thing I'll say, just for us, it's kind of fun, is we're going to Egypt in September. And so yes, so we are so excited about that. We've done some international programs over the years. And we really just go where we're invited. So we've done SLU 101, and we've done it in Israel and Palestinian territory. Brent's done one in Africa. So we've done it. We used 1 year, did one with friends in China. And so that we have some phenomenal partners with TC Egypt that have asked us to come. And so we are in September going, and we're going to do a mini 101 for students there, as well as a pastor training. So we're going to get to do the Youth Pastor Summit journey and SLU there. So we would covet your prayers about that. The doors are really opening. It's something that we have been praying about for pre-COVID, and to see that it's almost there is pretty exciting.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Lots of great things happening over there.
Yeah.
So, well,
Great
cool.
days ahead.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you for joining us today. Always a pleasure to hang out. We don't just stuff pamphlets because we like stuffing pamphlets. We like hanging out with you. So,
We appreciate that.
We'll do that again this season.
Okay.
At YPS. So, yeah.
All right.
Thank
We're
you.
grateful for y'all. Thank you for having me on today. It was a lot of fun.
It was a blast. Thank you for joining us. Jericho, what a conversation.
Well, I love that Nikki's from the East, and I hope that she listens to this so we can smile about how she gave us a lot
She
in that
did.
40-minute period of time.
Yep.
Gosh.
Yep.
I was sitting here writing, trying to take notes and trying to keep up with just all the things the Lord is doing with her and her team. And those of you
Yep.
who have spent any time with Nikki, in fact, I might even said this at the podcast recording, they're just a bunch of human beings. I mean, people call that salt of the earth. People call that just real people, like whatever you want to label that.
They are.
I so appreciate about that team, Nikki especially, but Nikki included. They're just real human beings.
They're generous, genuine. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're
all the things that you would say are fruits of the Spirit, right? The things that mark a Christ follower.
Yep.
You can say that about those people, and Nikki specifically.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, they'll jump for you. We requested a moment, and she's flying around the world and says, yeah, we can do that. And 2 days later, here we are recording a podcast with her. So it's amazing. It's awesome. So
what were your big takeaways?
Well, my big takeaway is, they're offering YPS, and it is YPS season. So jump on SLU Lead. I believe it's .com or .net. Look that up, click on YPS, Youth Pastor Summit, find the one that's closest to you, grab some youth pastor friends, some people who are in volunteers, whether they're volunteers or not, and get over to one of the conferences. We're hanging out there. It's a great time just to pause for a moment, evaluate. They dig in spiritually with you. They dig in leadership with you. They care about you as a person, and they really, it's just a moment that's tremendous. So invite everybody to check it out and be a part of it and come see us.
Could not agree more. SLUlead.com is exactly right. The other part of this, Brad, that I found interesting, and Nikki she kind of moved through it, but there is some new resource coming out from SLU Lead that for those of us who are used to their song and dance and who they are and what they stand for, there's some new things for us to buy into, the Wander Box being one of those, but there's just some new areas where, as we are influencing the next generation of leaders inside their school campus, there are ways that we can increase that influence. There are resources developed by this team that are prayerfully bathed in opportunity.
Correct.
So looking forward to digging into those post our conversation.
I love it. Yeah, and if those are resources and tools that can help you in your ministry, obviously they come with a recommendation from us. So go check them out.
Agreed.
Cool. Good conversation, Steve. Thanks for getting Nikki on the Zoom chat with us today and being a part of the community that is First Priority.
Great job this week, everybody. We're always grateful that you listen. Don't forget to give us a 5-star review. Don't forget to like, share, or comment. Make sure that on your favorite platform, we are hearing from you. And we look forward to seeing and hearing from you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Steve.